Hello and welcome to ULPLM.
Universal Life, Pure Love Ministries.
And tonight, since when in Rome and when on the day, we're going to do a Friday the 13th special. So we're going to have a couple of guests. Tonight we have Leonard O'Neill and JD. I'm not sure your last name, JD, but tonight we're going to interview Leonard. We've done a few shows together, and I've been on his show. And I've been on a webinar with him, and I just felt like we needed to share his knowledge, share some of what he's doing and where he's coming from. And he's also producing this show from up in the control tower and helping us with this live stream. So he's got an online store called Kelto's Cauldron, KELTO Cauldron.com, and there's tons of stuff on there.
Beautiful.
So this show is being brought to you by KeltosCauldron.com.
Yes.
So please introduce, no further ado, Leonard O'Neill.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. I'm glad to help out. They were having some technical difficulty and couldn't get the show with all of us on here to go right for some reason. So I said, hey, I'll produce the show for you. Let's go, brother. So we went ahead and decided to hook it up. And Aaron still had his camera on. I purposely turned it on to you because you were talking so people could see you, and then waited for you to turn off. Thank you.
Podcast style. So.
Right, exactly. So thank you guys for having me on, especially for Friday the 13th. And JD's last name is Jeffrey, by the way, and most people know who he is. JD Jeffrey, and he'll be talking here in a minute too, right? So let's talk Friday the 13th, man. I'm glad to be on here. I'm glad to be on your show. I'm glad to do this and also help out wherever I can, So yeah, let's have some fun, bro. Spooky, crazy stuff. What was that intro music? That was good stuff, bro.
Loving the intro music. Also created by Leonard. So, should I call you Leo, man?
Oh, you can call me Leo, brother. Yeah, Leo's good. Yeah.
Right. And JD, nice to meet you.
And yes,
I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Aaron. It's nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me on the show. Happy Friday the 13th, everyone.
Right.
Yes, happy Friday the 13th.
Happy Friday 13th.
So that's why we had you on. I was talking with Leonard a couple of weeks ago or about a month ago. We were talking about what kind of show we should do, and he brought up Friday the 13th and said that he's had some pretty deep discussions on this subject, in the past. So I figured this would be a good time because he just ended up on Friday the 13th. That was the next available date.
Right, isn't that cool?
Shows.
Yeah,
so
now
I thought, let's do Friday the 13th thing.
See, now JD and I, if we're on my show, anybody who knows me or knows JD, every year since we've met now, this will be the third year, in October on Friday the 13th, when there's a Friday the 13th in October, and it was last 2 years happened to be that way. We'd gone live on Friday the 13th in October because that was the date. In fact, we did it on, it was a year anniversary. Last year was an actual year to the day anniversary of the Knights Templars being arrested on Friday the 13th. October Friday the 13th back in 1307. So it was actually literally the birthday of that event, or the tragic day of that event that we went live and talked about Friday the 13th. So I love doing that because people are superstitious, right? Everybody's just like, woo, black cats and Friday the 13th and bad luck. There's a lot of stuff out there that's misnomers and crazy myths, and hopefully we can get into some of that today while we're talking, and just have fun with it, because there's no I don't think there's any real reason why you should be afraid of Friday the 13th. Maybe JD's got a different opinion. You know what I mean?
What do you think, JD?
No reason to be afraid of any number, let alone say the number 13.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even today, it's still a number that's considered a lucky number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Way back in history, but then it kind of got outlawed, as we know, and as we're going to get into.
Yeah, I was actually looking up online about Friday the 13th, and there was this one site that said debunking Friday the 13th, and in fact, it was I think it was it wasn't history, so it was Wikipedia or one of those, and they cited this woman over in England who is a history professor not in England, but in the UK. She's in Wales, and she's actually a professor there, and she works for this college. And she says, I don't know the quote. I'll have to, I can't get it verbatim, but she says that the Templar Knights, in her opinion, are just a bunch of boring Roman Catholics. So I looked her up. And oddly enough, this woman who is quoted as saying they're a bunch of boring Roman Catholics has written 3 books and 12 dissertations. Her life's work has been studying and talking about these boring Roman Catholics. She's made her life's money, wealth, and doctorate off of the Knights Templar, who then she turns around and slams and says they're a bunch of boring Roman Catholics.
Yeah, they were so boring that she spent most of her life studying them.
You see what I'm saying? Right? Yeah, so that's just very English. I could just see her going, oh, they're just boring Roman Catholics. You know how they are, Right. That's just wrong, right? So when I read that, I looked her up because I do that. If somebody says, well, so-and-so said, I look it up. That's the way I am. And JD's kind of the same way. So I just was laughing about that because that was about an hour and a half ago. I read that and thought, yeah, okay, whatever, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a correlation between Jesus and the Last Supper on Friday.
Yes, I was looking at that too. That's right.
Friday the 13th, that it was Friday, and Judas was the 13th.
It was, yeah, it was.
Wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, he was 13. He was number 13, and it was on Thursday, which was the 13th day of the month, and he was actually executed the next day on Friday, the 14th.
Okay.
But because of all the correlations, like you said, 13 people at the Last Supper and that sort of stuff, and that day that the Last Supper was on was Thursday the 13th, and so yeah, that became very superstitious because of the number 13 repetitively there.
And I feel like there's just as much credence, or maybe not quite as much, but I feel like there's just as much credence to the superstitions of things, good and bad, right? It's that magic we talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's good and bad. It's that intention, and where are you putting your emotions, or where are you placing? Like I feel this Friday the 13th, and it feels good. It always feels a little odd. That
Mm-hmm.
might be because of my programming and what I grew up with the superstition. But I do feel like there is something to the superstitions. Now that doesn't mean that there is as much as is talked about it. But I feel like there is, I've in hotels. I mean, I've been in hotels that do not have the number 13. It goes 12
Mm-hmm.
and then 14.
Mm-hmm. Many buildings don't have the 13th floor. Yeah.
I mean, there's something esoteric to it, although I couldn't describe it to you and why, but I feel like the number 3 and the number 1 are very significant. I feel like they're very significant numbers in life, though all the other numbers are as well. There's something to it. I mean, there's something that resonates with us on a collective, or as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had good and bad, but mostly good Friday the 13th. I mean, they've always been a little awkward, or odd, not awkward. But I've had also Easter's been kind of weird for me too. I don't know why, but just strange things happen on those days. So yeah, I mean, that's from what I know about it. Yeah, there was also in Norse mythology, there was a dinner among the Council of 12, and Loki barged in and shot Frigg,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which and that story as well, and that correlates. And a lot of people have attached certain things to it, but I feel like, the Templar Knights, I feel like what's going on there. I feel like that probably rings the truest to me.
Well, we'll get into that. There's other things out there that people say that the reason that we here in America are really stuck on the number 13 being bad luck is there was 2 books written around the turn of the century that talked about Friday the 13th, and one was the superstition around it, and the other one was that somebody who was a stockbroker used that number and convinced everybody that was a bad number to have like a Black Friday. That's where they get that from in the stock market, and so because of that, everybody said that it was bad luck, and the number was bad luck. And I think that maybe this it's just my opinion that it might be just an accumulation of things. You know, like if with superstitions say if everyone believes something, because you know me, I believe that if everybody believes something, we can make it so. So if everyone believes and they're afraid of Friday the 13th, then it's going to be weird for us. It's going to feel weird. If everybody doesn't and they don't fear it, then there's no reason to fear it, and everybody calms down. So I think that maybe the persona of superstition, because you know what, I had a yacht. And I was thinking about changing the name, and the maritime guys were like, it's bad luck to change the name of a boat. So I didn't change the name, and I kept it, and I ended up selling it because I thought that the name was the Whiskey Six. It wasn't a bad name. There's no other boat in the world that had it, and so because of that, my superstition was no one else has this name. So that I was worried about that because there is no boats out there with that name, just mine. It was cool and unique, but no one else had it. So that makes it kind of weird. So I thought about changing the name, and the boat seemed to have a curse going with it. So I kept it. I've gotten rid of it now, so it's someone else's problem. But there are those weird superstitions. Baseball players, man, those guys have a ritual they go through before they go up to the plate and at the plate. You know what I mean? They're very superstitious. So, who knows if there's something to superstition? I think that what is in play is that if you believe in something, then you make it so. So if you believe that Friday the 13th is bad, it's going to be bad for you. If you believe in a black cat crossing your path, you got to stop and pull over for half an hour or go back the other way, then you'll make that happen. So if you say the consequences of stepping on a crack is you're going to break your mother's back like when we were kids, or break a mirror and you have 7 years bad luck, that'll happen because you'll manifest it, because you believe it. That's what I believe. So I agree with that. I don't think there's much to Friday the 13th. I think 13 is a lucky number, like JD said.
Well, 3 and 1 are great, powerful numbers.
See, now, if you want to talk numerology, let's get JD in here because he'll tell you some 13 stuff, brother. JD, why don't you hop in?
The card I pulled was 31, not 13, but
still 1 and 3. Still 1 and 3. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, JD, what do you think about 13, buddy? And Friday the 13th. Are you still with us?
Oh, wow. Now, let's see. 13. It has a special significance in history for various different reasons. Okay, now, where do you want to start with that one?
Well, let's start with the story of the Templar Knights. That's what Aaron was itching at, right? So let's go down that hole first. Let's run down that rabbit hole and give everybody the lowdown on Friday the 13th, right? On that.
Originally there was 9 Templars who formed the I think it was the Saints of Jesus Christ they were originally called, and then became the Knights Templars.
Yeah, once they went to the Temple of Solomon, and then they were there, they made their base there, and they were called, from that point on, they were called the Templars because they were in Solomon's temple, and they took up residency there. That's how they got the name.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, because I was knighted by the church in Rome, I belong to the Holy Order of Columbus. So that was put together by ancestors of the Templar Knights, and that's why it took 150 years for the Roman Catholic Church to acknowledge the Knights of Columbus as a holy order again, and that they literally just were enacted back in '69 with Pope John Paul. So now there's 2 million of us strong in the world, and we are knighted by the Holy Roman See. We are Holy Roman Church, and we have a Sir title. And when you get your 4th degree, which it's not like Masonry where there's 33 degrees. In the Knights, there's only 4. There's 3 degrees of brotherhood when you're learning, and then you have to be invited, and to be a 4th degree, and that's when you get knighted, because you have to be a man of worth. You have to be a person who's dedicated their life to the life of a knight and truly believe that. And so you have to be invited. So then you go through a ceremony and a process. You literally take a knee, and they literally dressed up in all the garb, and they come out and they get the sword on either shoulder, and they have this whole ceremony that they do, and then you kiss the sword and the cross and that kind of stuff, and then you rise a knight. I mean, it's literally done that way, the way you see it in the movies. Only we're not wearing armor because we don't wear armor anymore, so we dress in a tuxedo.
I have cousins that have been knighted, and
Hmm.
I wasn't there, but I saw photos.
You can't be. Yeah, you can't be. It's a secret ceremony that only knights get to see. You can't be there to see it.
Yeah.
You're in one of them secret societies there. Huh?
Absolutely, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
And yeah, that's not, see, and I have, like, personally, talking about superstitions and what all, like ceremony. I love ceremony. However, I have this whole big thing with it, right? Part of me, I don't want to dismiss ceremony in any way. However, I get to, I like have this line I walk with ceremony.
It's submissive.
I feel like there's a balance I need to walk in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, you believe something so strongly, and you are willing to go to such lengths to, you know, and maybe it's just because there have been lines crossed in past lives where I've crossed those lines. I don't know. But yeah, you know, there's, for me, a certain balance I have to keep with those, you know, with just such ceremonies. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we don't want to get too carried away into get lost in the, you know, keep ourselves grounded.
Right,
But
absolutely.
yeah, so the Templar Knights. So they were created, or they were at Solomon. They had the Solomon's Temple, so they called themselves the Templars.
No, the church
And
actually
then
called them that. So go ahead,
Oh, the
JD.
church,
Yeah,
okay.
the church called them the Templar Knights. So go ahead, JD. You run the story because he's very more detailed than I am when it comes to that.
Yeah. This is very interesting.
Yes, it is.
And they were. It's interesting how they came about, got to the Temple of Solomon as well. And that was ordained through King of France and the Pope of the Vatican.
Okay.
While they spent time there, they had been known for sending riders back with information, if you want to, that, because nobody actually knows what they were bringing back.
Right.
Okay.
Established money lending system, which we actually use today. You would call it the earliest form of Western Union, actually,
Mm-hmm.
is what it was.
Our banking system is based on theirs.
Again, yes, it was based on their conception of the money lending system. So what they were doing as Templars, where they were enlisted with helping passengers travel safely because of the holy wars that were going on at the time between the Christians and the Muslims. And that's when they ended up in temple and getting, they were given actually a area there to live, in the station there.
Yeah, and word has it that they started digging, and they were digging for something, but no one knows exactly what. But after about 5 years of being there, these cousins, they were all cousins, they were all French nobles, French knights, they found something down in the mines of Solomon, in the temple, that they dug up. So they hopped on their horses and hot-footed it back to the King of France. He immediately sent them to Rome to see the Pope. They went to Rome and saw the Pope, and all of a sudden they were the most wealthy organization with unlimited budget on the face of the earth. And then they started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and huger and huger, and they just, more people joined the Knights, and they became the most powerful group of people of their time. In fact, so much so that they were loaning money to kings to wage war on other countries. And the King of France and the Pope in Rome owed them money, and combined all of the territories of France and all of the territories of Rome, the Templar Knights owned more land and had more money and more troops than they did.
Yeah. I've heard stories.
So the Pope in Rome and the King of France, who, by the way, the King of France basically got the Pope elected, so it was sort of like his puppet. So he said he was broke and owed them money, and he had just been fighting. I think it was in the Baltics. Don't quote me. And he looked around and said, "They have more land than we do, and more money. What if we get together with our forces and all at the same time arrest them and confiscate everything they own? All their ships, all their troops, all their money, their wealth, their lands, their commerce." Because they had shipbuilding factories, they had slaughterhouses, they had everything.
Control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decided that, and the date they decided on was 8 a.m. early morning, local time in the Holy Land, Friday, October, Friday the 13th, 1307.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
Okay, but what had happened was someone told the Temple Knights, because from the time everybody went to bed until the time when all these troops were trying to arrest them all over Europe and the Holy Land all at one time, they all went to where all of these Templar Knights were supposed to be, their banks, their jobs, everything. And when they all rushed in at the same time so they wouldn't be able to warn each other, they only captured 600 knights, and everyone else, their entire army, all of their gold, all of their riches, all of their ships, all of their horses, all of everything they owned disappeared off the face of the earth to never be seen again.
Wow, I never heard that story. I've heard of the Templar Knights a
bits
little
and
bit.
pieces of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Suppose, but from Indiana Jones,
Right.
I mean, really, that's
Well-
as much as I've learned, other than like the History Channel.
Well,
A
and
little bit, but
so no one knows what happened to them, and no one knows what. But so the whole thing was, if your name was on that list, you were unlucky. So Friday the 13th became unlucky because if you were the unlucky people, the unlucky knights, but we don't know what happened to them since then. But there are telltale signs all around, and people have been investigating this forever about where they turned up. Like, say, for instance. At that time, over in a place that is now called Sweden, there was no country that was there at the time. It was just a bunch of people living there. But there's a mountain pass that is the crossroads through that mountain range over there, the Swiss Alps. And there was just a bunch of robbers that were up on the mountain pass that would just attack caravans coming through and rob them of their riches. Well, shortly after the Templar Knights disappeared, all of a sudden these holy knights showed up wearing what looked like Templar outfits, and they killed all the robber knights and took over the mountain pass, and they took over the territory, and they called it Switzerland, and the Swiss flag is now a red banner with a white cross, and the Templar banner was a white banner with a red cross. So that literally the other side of the coin. Also, at the same time, in Scotland, if you watch the movie The Braveheart, what you don't know is that during that battle of Bannockburn, when they attacked at the end of the movie, they were losing that battle, and out of nowhere, at the last second, a whole group of knights dressed in white all of a sudden charged on the field, charged into the battle, and defeated the English king, and Scotland became freed. And right after that, Rosslyn Castle was built. Rosslyn Chapel was built by the St. Clair family, who to this day started the Holy Order of the Temple Knights about 20 years ago back up again.
very interesting. This is great information.
Right?
Thank you.
Right? So it gets like crazier than that, and then we'll get back onto the 13. Okay, let me go down the rest of this rabbit hole. It gets crazier. The Money Pit in Canada, the St. Clair family, that's their land. They own that island. They did St. Clair. Yes, same family.
Oak Island in Nova Scotia.
Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Now, Oak Island is they call it Oak Island because there's oak trees there, and oak trees are not indigenous to Canada. Am I right, JD? It isn't. So off of that island on shore is the remnants of a St. Clair Castle. So the St. Clair family lived there, and according to legend, the information, Dan Brown did it in his book, the information that was gathered from the Solomon's Temple was either the chalice that Jesus drank out of, or the information that Jesus had a bloodline, that he had children, and who those children were. Now, we know in history today that he had to have been married. Okay, so he had to have been married and he had to have had children. So Mary Magdalene had to have been pregnant and married to him when he was crucified and she left. Okay. She also showed up in France. Weird, all this ties back to France, right? So anyway, so the Sinclair family has to do with all that craziness and the Templar Knights. So then you find out that they found out recently the Templar Knights were here in America as well. Okay. They were even in Arizona, for crying out loud.
I've heard of Templar Knights being involved in a lot of politics.
Okay, and here's something else to think about. When Columbus set sail to the New World, he had 3 ships, and the sails were what? White banners with red crosses on them.
Yeah.
Okay, Columbus sailed the 7 seas and came and found America, and they say that he had the map that Leif Erikson had that showed the way to the United States. That's the very same map that the Templar Knights had to make their way here when Robert Sinclair sailed over to America, to Nova Scotia. So Columbus comes aboard. Columbus comes over with these ships he borrowed from the Spanish Queen, flying Templar colors. When he gets to America and discovers it, he then writes back home, and from that point on, he starts adopting the hooked X that the Templar Knights use, and he became a knight shortly thereafter and was knighted because of that. And the Holy Order, the only Holy Order that remains in the Roman Catholic Church today, is called the Holy Order of Columbus. So all of that ties in. Okay, so now let's get off of that rabbit hole and let's stay on topic. Let's go back to JD, and JD, tell us some stories about the number 13, my friend. Right?
Okay, so number 13. Let's coveted number, shall we say, within it's that stands for how you'd number in various, for example, the Mayans.
JD, I think your mic's cutting in and out, buddy. It seems like you're off then on.
Try to. Hopefully, I won't do that again.
Now you seem okay.
To start at the end of 2012.
Okay.
So,
13th year.
5,000 intervals of 5,125 years. For 5 and 2, 5, it adds up to 13 as well. So they have this calculated within their timeline. We also find that in the Egyptian kings list as well, which Leonard and I discussed in his last show. You will also find 13 prominent there. But where you'll find it most prominently is in the generations of given in Scripture, in Bibles, which I find extremely interesting, that it continues to convey itself. First human had his first child at the age of 130. So you're given the example of 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes on throughout the generations. Now, the generations from the beginning of Adam to the deluge period of Noah is given at 26 generations and 5 weeks. Well, the total of 26 generations and 5 weeks is 1,309 years.
Oh, wow.
Trust me, it gets crazier. Go ahead, JD.
I find that if you start studying this Friday the 13th, because I was doing some research because I didn't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, what I knew about it was like what I learned on, Friday the 13th movies.
Mm-hmm.
Jason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning a lot, and I'm very appreciative of it. So Continue.
And I'm digging the whole number thing because I try.
But yeah,
to
you
study
find
it.
that there's so many
Yeah.
synchronicities
Right.
to different events and different, the numbers keep matching up as you're doing research on it. And that's why I say that, some people say, when you see 444, 333, oh, that's just you thinking about those numbers, so they just come up. But I've seen it enough and been able to, I'm good at what I do, good enough at what I do to discern when I'm getting a message and when I'm not. And the number 3 comes up a lot. I mean, my website is psychicshaman333.com.
Mhm.
I mean, and I see it everywhere. I see the number 3 and the number 1, especially together everywhere, especially now since I've been studying it. So part of it is a mental thing that you are remembering it, but it's also you're aware of those numbers it's that pattern of numbers that continue to come up. And I'm seeing it, and it so correlates with so many things in history. But this is so interesting. So anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Stop rambling so that you can need to inform us, pretty please. Thank you.
Okay, so when you get into what Scripture is actually detailing, it's detailing a period of 13,000-year intervals, which is given in the ending of in the book in Revelation. It gives you a period of 1,260 days, which are God's days. Now that's transferred. God's days are transferred. A day in the life of God is 1,000 years in the life of man. So 1,260 days for God would be 12,600 year period, which is rounded up to 13. And they go further into the story of that to explain that. So you'll see that in Revelation. However, in the books that they took out, the Gospels that they took out of the Bible, you'll find the timelines more explained further in detail. Especially when you get into the Book of Jubilee, which is Book of Generations timeline, then you can continually find the number 13 given to you. It tells you that, explains the timeline. And then delusion explains all that. And it tells you that on the 13th week, you should celebrate this as a remembrance. It tells you, blessed are those that make it to the 1335th day. It goes on continuing with 13s. So the number there is continually offered in there. The timelines were given through civilizations prior to now, prior to what we've been able to understand before, because we've thought of these as true stories.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes up in those patterns. Like I said, that's what I do being a psychic. That's what I follow, is a lot of patterns just in my own life. And yeah, that number 13 comes up a lot, and or 31. And it's cool to just see how things keep repeating themselves, or like every 12,000, what was it, 12,098 years? Right.
Revelation, but
So that is like reset happens at like every reset. Is that what they're talking about?
About a cycle. They're giving you a continuation count to a cycle, and they're explaining that a prior advanced civilization went through this, and this is what the cycle will bring in the future. And they're giving us explanations on what to look for and how.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. See, and that's why I love like numerology, astrology, all those things that I have a hard time really focusing on and learning myself. I try my hardest. But being able to talk about and being able to understand it on my human level is beautiful. And the way for me to do that is in the cycles, because we can take the smallest cycle, especially as women. We all have.
Oh yeah, even that one's the lunar cycle.
You know what I'm
13.
saying? You can
menstrual cycle.
Take just the smallest cycle that happens, that happens on a regular basis, and just pay attention to all the signs and signals that happen within that time, and be able to correlate it to other times, and it just helps you to kind of navigate life itself. And I'm sorry, I kind of brought us off subject.
No, you're correct on that. The lunar cycle, 13th month calendar.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a past history that's been not lost, but for some reason,
Yeah, kind of just neglected.
more it's hidden, it's taken away. All those are people trying to bring it back. But you're correct on that. In fact, continuing with what Bible tells you, it says God's perfect year is 364 days. 3 plus 6 plus 4 is 13. So, and it continues to go like that throughout Scripture if you follow what the stories are telling you and how they go together. It's very curious on how it's been done.
Right?
Yeah. Like, wow, this is a lot of coincidences at this number.
Right, and see, there's no such thing as a coincidence. You know what I mean? It just doesn't happen. Yeah. So this stuff is just, it's there, and, you know, it's almost like a code. You know, one of the people in the audience, I'm just looking at the chat, said about 3, 3, 5, 8, 13, and you were talking about 3s and 13s, and, you know, Nikola Tesla used 3, 6, and 9.
Yeah.
And that's part of the equation that is phi. So that whole thing is a spiral. So here we are looking at,
Yeah, that's like 3.175, isn't it?
No, that's
Or
pi.
something like
That's
that.
pi.
It is pi.
Yeah, that's pi. Phi is 1 point. Yeah, 1.468 or
618.
618.
That
Yeah,
3 and that 1 again.
yeah, one. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's kind of freaky, right?
Yeah, it's cool. I knew we were going to have a great conversation because you can just continue to talk about 13. Well, there's actually a name for the fear of the number 13. I can't remember the name of it.
I was just looking at it because I know that the what was it? I was just looking at it. Let me see if I wrote it down. If I did, I'll tell you. So, JD, go ahead and talk about the number 13 while I'm seeing if I can find this thing. What was that? Say it again. Triskaidekaphobia, but there was also another name they gave it as well. Let me see if I have it here written down because it was just like that, but it was longer.
Friday the 13th is like Triskaidekaphobia.
That's what it is. So, yeah, that's what it is. So they added that first part on.
Yeah.
So, curious to me is how, in essence, the Vatican made us afraid of the number 13 with Templars episode, yet through Scripture, the number 13 continues to appear. Even in simple parables that make no understanding, you get the equation of 13.
Well, see, and it appears in history in different places. Like here in the West, where we have Friday the 13th, but it's still the 13th, okay? Then if you have Hispanics mostly and Greek culture, it's Tuesday the 13th. Not Friday the 13th. It's Tuesday because the fall of Constantinople. Now, this is how they got to that, which is really weird, right? So the Hispanics and the Greeks believe that because the fall of Constantinople to the Fourth Crusade was on Tuesday, April 13th, 1204. The fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans was on Tuesday, the 29th of May. So you had the Tuesday, the 13, and it was in 1453. So because of that, the coincidence of the same thing happening, just like Jesus on Thursday, the 13th, you had Tuesday the 13th, so the Greeks saw that as a bad day. So the 13th became Tuesday the 13th, was their superstitious day like our Friday the 13th. But still, the number 13.
Yeah.
Well, I just find, superstitions to be kind of funny in a whole, excuse me, because there is so many different perceptions around, like, the globe, right? Because I've always viewed our, like, Friday the 13th and a lot of our other little, like the black cats, the whatever, all that stuff. Even though it had significant meaning and I knew within my soul to pay attention to these things, they were always kind of, okay, well, this is just childish kind of, this
Things that we
family
could
believed
break 'cause
this
we're
because
rebels.
this happened and they had to blame
Right.
something and that's what their blame was. And so they told all their kids and all their kids told their kids, don't ever do this. You know what I mean? And that also probably...
Yeah, and there's always some boogeyman, right?
But
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There's always a boogeyman. There's always something to
Oh, they
blame.
made one up for us. Friday the
And
13th movies,
Right.
films.
And
They
so,
created a boogeyman for it.
and so
Right.
I've always kind of held there's significance in every superstition and every belief in every religion and everything. There's significance within it. And that's why I said I think even with like just with celebration and ceremony as a whole, I find, at least in this lifetime, I need to find a balance within it, because you can get yourself lost in all those things. Holding that belief of that superstition, holding the belief that this particular ceremony is going to make this particular thing happen, because really we are God in human form, each and every one of us, right?
Right.
We are a spark of God. We each hold individually our own unique piece, but we are all the whole. So if we need something, we have it all.
Oh wait, let me interject. Let me interject real quick. I wanted to say this in the chat. John said, I said the year 1453. I didn't think about that. 1 + 4 + 5 + 3 is 13.
There you go. See?
He pointed that out in the chat. I just looked at the chat and I was like, hey, because I said, and that happened in 1453. And he went, 1 + 4 + 5 + 3 is 13.
Like I say, I've always known there's serious significance in every belief, in every superstition, in every way to perceive things.
Right.
But I feel like there's a reason that we need to know all these things, right? The details, where they come from, at least to the best of our knowledge, because there is a balance to be held within all these beliefs. Because whatever has been believed strong enough has come, right? So we must know that with someone telling me their belief, I take within me the things that are whole for me, and then realize there are things that don't necessarily have to correlate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can make my own thing as well, which is where we get religions, where we get, societies, or whatever people want to cults, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Because they're different pieces of different ideas. And so I'm kind of losing us on this a little bit. I'm sorry.
No. Actually, I want to continue on what you're saying, because I believe I agree with you.
Finding the balance in all of that, because here's the thing. Yes, as humans, we work in a collective. We are a collective. I mean, no matter how we want to look at it, even
Don't let
if
it
we
rule
separate
you, is what you're
ourselves
saying.
from it.
Don't let it control your
But
life.
to each of us is our own spark of the whole, and with each of us is the whole, right? So yes, take bits and pieces from everything. If you are resonating with something, if you're believing something, listen to it. Let it kind of marry with you a little bit, but don't take it in so wholeheartedly that you are making that you.
You form
because that
rigid
is
beliefs
not
over
you.
it, right?
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, and I agree with that, and that's why I was going to tell you, you're not off topic by saying that, because we're showing that the number 13 is repetitive throughout history, throughout time, throughout superstition, throughout the Bibles, throughout all of this stuff. And how does that tie into what you're talking about? It does 100%. The balance, just like you said, the balance is where everything is. So when that means that you're balancing everything, every part of you, your spirit, your body, your soul, and your chakras and everything. And all of that has to do with ceremony. All of that has to do with the harmony of everything in the universe. Now, to understand that, you have to understand how repetitive and spiral-like the universe is. Okay, so time isn't as linear as we think that it is, although we are stuck in a fourth dimensional space where we're 3 dimensions and time being the fourth dimension. But I'm tending to believe, and this is where a lot of people are starting to believe, is that truthfully we're becoming aware of the 5th dimension, in that we are in a 3-dimensional space with time, and time is moving forward, gives us the 4th dimension, and then spirituality is giving us the 5th dimension. So I don't believe people say, that there's a totally different new dimension we're going to move into, that's the 5th dimension. No, that's within us. That's here. It's already here. That's what I believe.
Exactly. I believe, okay, we are rooted within this realm. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And now this realm is changing. It's on the constant. And that's why I say, yes, these things are important to recognize and see that we're on this cycle, we're on this spiral, or we're kind of moving through things. And take your ceremony or your belief seriously, yes. Marry it, think about it, take what really resonates with you, but understand that we're living a life that is truly a moment-to-moment basis.
Hmm.
What I believe in this moment may completely change the next.
Absolutely.
And so understanding the residuality. Okay, I could have used a much simpler word, Norma. Understanding the synchronicity and the repetitivity in all of it, especially within your own personal being, is truly where you can find the harmony in life itself. You find where you can work with the things that are out of your control, and it gives you a little bit of that control because now you understand it and you have a thorough choice to make. You understand that your choices are a cause and effect matter. And you know what I mean? It just brings you to a enlightenment, moving to the fifth dimension, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are truly, truly just our mind. All is mind. The universe is mental.
Right.
You know what I mean? We are all anchored here in this 3D realm where we are experiencing the same somewhat experience, but experiencing it uniquely. So no matter where we're moving or transcending or ascending to, we are still here in this 3D realm.
As well as not here in this 3D realm.
Exactly.
That's right. As well as not here.
Exactly.
Yep.
And just I'm gonna go back here a little bit. Sorry, but she was talking about how the rituals and things like that, and you were talking about earlier with the baseball players, not stepping on the line,
Mhm.
or
Not changing underwear.
Right.
not changing. Trust me, I did that when I was in Little League. Yeah. Oh God, we're on a winning streak. I'm not changing my socks. They were horrible by the time we lost. But anyway, no, there's something to that that ritual. I use it in golf, and the greatest golfers do use it. Everybody that's good at it and good at what they do, they have this ritual that they go through, and it's basically to keep yourself in that zone, right?
Hmm.
To kind of help even in the bad times. It's keeping yourself in that
Knowing
zone,
where you
which
are,
I would also
but you're
relate
looking
to
to
what you were
reconvene.
talking about as well, which is balance.
Well, see, and I
I don't know,
agree with
JD.
that. I agree. I didn't want to just step over JD. Let me do this real quick and then let JD talk because we've been talking over. So, but I agree with that, and to point that out to show what is exactly what you're talking about, and what we're all talking about. What Norma even said is if you look at the Japanese culture. Now, I don't mean the culture now because the culture now is very Western, like they're like us over here. But if you look at their ancient culture, and even people still practice this over there. And I must have been Japanese in a past life. I love their culture because their culture was perfection. Everything they did, they didn't move fast, they didn't have to. Everything they did was deliberate. Every step, every breath, everything they did. When those rituals, when they're making tea, everything is perfect and it flows, and I love watching people do that. Even when they're practicing with the sword, the samurais, everything they did was a ritual, but it was perfection. They were making sure that everything they did was beautiful. And because of that, they were the greatest warriors we've ever seen on the face of this earth. They were able to make swords that people still can't do to this day. They were able to have a
Right.
discipline that people can't have to this day. They were, for lack of a better word, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, you're right. Yeah, and that's always drawn
But they
me to
also
that as well.
committed carry, and
Right, but then there was downsides but they believed that,
weren't that perfect.
right. But what I'm saying is in their actions,
Right.
maybe not their
As
ideology.
warriors,
Yeah.
they were perfect
Well, they
warriors.
put
Yeah.
consciousness into their actions.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And they taught consciousness with
They
Absolutely.
put intent and focus
Right.
and discipline
Right.
and those things. Yeah, and that
into
works
everyday
with
things,
everything.
every
Everything you want to do.
ceremony,
You know.
See, and I
you
agree
become
with
a
that.
master, and I'm not a master, but I played guitar for over 20 years or most of my life, and I'm at a point now where I can pick up a guitar and I can just play. It doesn't take
Right.
me that long to get back into it,
Right.
And that's the thing. It's all about how long are you how much time are you spending on it. If you're spending a lot of time on Friday the 13th movies, well, I hope you're a filmmaker and you're trying to learn something about how to film a horror movie. If you're dwelling on the negative parts of it,
Yeah.
and the negative parts of Friday the 13th, you probably are going to have bad things happen. More so because, like you said when we were talking about earlier, we create these things. But there is
But there is correlation and
something
significance.
profound to that.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
That
I think
thing
there's something
works
to it.
both ways.
Yeah. That's why rituals are important. Like one of the people in the crowd said, we commit rituals every day. You get up, you take a shower, you drink your coffee, you eat, and you're absolutely right. I have a ritual that I do as well. I always put everything in the exact same place, so I know that if it's not there, I've lost it. Otherwise, it should
Right.
be exactly where I set it down every time. Right? So I know where my keys are going to be. I know where my wallet's going to be. You know what I'm saying? I know where my cell phone is. I know where my reading glasses are. They're always in the same place unless I forgot them. And then I go, uh-oh, and then I look around and see where I accidentally left them. But for the most part, when I go to bed, everything is where I want it to be in the morning, where it's going to be where I can find it. See, that's a ritual.
Yeah. And see, and
And a
that's
superstition,
exactly
right? And a superstition.
things. Yes, those are rituals. And what the old Japanese used to teach was just basically being conscious of those. But we are all building habits
They
and
spent
rituals all the time.
Years
Absolutely.
of their life learning under masters,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they perfected a lot of. Yeah, they
And then
perfected
us
warfare.
Westerners said, "Hey, money's more important."
I mean, the
Let's
guy
go
that wrote the
business."
book on warfare is
Yeah.
Japanese, right?
Kinda.
No, it's actually Chinese. The Art of War, that's Chinese.
But,
But
no,
still, it's still the
Same-
Asian belief. It's still the
same
whole
area.
thing. However, no, I have to say, yeah, same region. So, however, I have to say that, I've been in martial arts the better part of my life. I think I started when I was 8. Okay. And I still practice, although not as much anymore because I'm getting older. I'm 50. So I don't do it as much anymore. But I still see everything from that standpoint, from that discipline of martial arts. Martial arts to me was literally, I took it the way the Japanese took it. I literally saw it as a grace in movement. To this day, when I move, anybody who knows me, I can sneak up on anybody in broad daylight, and I'm 6'1", and right now I weigh 365. And I could walk up behind you, and you'll never know I'm even there. It's because of the training that I've had for my whole life. And people, I still do that. I don't think about it. And I walk up behind somebody in a store, and I'm looking at something, and they go jump, and they go, "Whoa, where did you come from?" And I'm like, "I apologize. I do that, and I don't intend to do that. It's just who I am." And I've had people look at me and say, "You are way too quiet for a man of your size." And I'm like, "That's training. I still move that way. I even find myself doing it for no apparent reason. I'm putting ice trays and filling them up and walking them over to the freezer."
That's what's so cool about it is that you put enough time and intention into it that it has become just a natural thing.
Yeah, I'm laughing at myself knowing that I'm moving, and as I'm standing there putting the ice trays in, I'm thinking, "Lord have mercy, I'm using all the martial art moves that I have, and I'm looking like a Japanese guy."
Ice in, ice out.
Ice in, ice out.
Like, I am using the ice, So, and that's what's beautiful about it. It's just I'm really trying to be more conscious about every movement, and get out of necessarily habit per se, but get into different habits at least, so that at least I'm doing better things more naturally.
Are you guys noticing the numbers
so
on the?
It really is
view count,
beautiful.
sorry.
I know, I have noticed.
It keeps showing up 13. You noticing that?
It keeps jumping up and down from 13, doesn't it?
I've been on myself a lot about habits, I think, and so I think that's why I'm getting on that right now, is because I have been trying so hard to be more conscious of every movement, because I really am. I do meditate more easily within movement, right?
Yeah.
And so if I can be more conscious of that movement and that meditation, it's just more powerful for me. So make that a habit, no matter how it is you're forming it, and the fact that you got to do that since you were a kid, and that's kind of just a habit for you, and you can kind of laugh at that, is beautiful.
See, it just becomes a ritual, and I don't fight, but sometimes I smile when I realize that I'm doing it. I'm like, if someone were to see me right now, they'd be looking at me going, "Are you doing Tai Chi while you're putting the ice away?" In a sense, yeah, I think I am. So, okay, let's go. I want to talk to JD some more. I know I am the one who stopped and overtalked him, so I apologize, JD, because he and I talked on my show about the number 13 and its correlation in so much different things in history that he hasn't even touched on that tonight. And I think that we need to get back on that, because I love listening to JD. Like, for instance,
It's a long show tonight.
Like, for instance, I know, because well, we don't have to go 3 hours or anything, but like you guys said, we can do like
JD finish up what he's talking about.
Yeah. So JD, let's run down that rabbit hole that you did the other night on my show about 13 with, say, let's just mess with the pyramid at Giza, and tell them about how 13 correlates with that, and Machu Picchu and Sacsayhuaman and that stuff. All right, buddy?
Okay, well, right. It has to do a lot with what we were talking about before, about generations in the scripture of timelines, what was given us there. Now, everyone remembers the number 13 and a lot of things, but we started off with generations being, which is 26,000 year, considered the great year, and half point is, of course, 13,000. Signal out in scripture for a very specific reason, because it's giving us a lot of information in the ancient monuments. And that's what Leonard was alluding to. So to break it all short, throughout the Bible, it'll give you information regarding the Great Pyramid as being a witness. Now, the Great Pyramid,
Your microphone's cutting out, JD.
oh, apologize.
There you go.
So the
There you
Great
go.
Pyramid, in all its mathematical, number 13, built on 13 acres. The height of the pyramid is 481 feet. 4 plus 8 plus 1 is 13.
Right.
Plateau of the three pyramids continue to do this. And actually, it was that in the last show, Leonard talked about ratios. And actually, because ratios is the idea of rounding the number up. Now, when you get into the pyramid numbers, one side of the Great Pyramid is 756 feet. Well, if you round that up, it's 760, and 7 and 6 is 13.
That's right.
If you multiply all four sides of the pyramid being 756 feet, you'll get 3,024. And when you add the height, 481, into that, you get 3,505. And 3 plus 5 and 5 is 13. It's to show you this number in a simple fashion, but it also shows it to you in metric and in cubits.
Right.
So that you cannot miss this number.
Just symmetrical. Yeah, exactly.
Like with didn't we create our whole system of math or something on the number 12? And maybe it should have been the number 13.
That the base number for 12, there is the what we call imperial, which is 12-inch foot. But there is older math going back, known as the Indus Valley foot, which is a calculation of approximately 13.2 inches, as we would see it. So yes.
Yeah. It's all very cool.
All kinds of like different varies of math calculations to show you all advanced math procedures, from imperial, which is basic, metric, cubits, right into, as we spoke, phi and pi, astronomical units as well. As we need to know this for this cycle that is explaining. And of course, as Robert Reval shown, the three pyramids of Giza align to Orion's belt, which is again a cycle of 26,000 years. Yes, not just with scriptures and different civilizations generation count, but also with the monuments as well.
Right, right.
So it's kind of freaky if you think about how many times we correlate that number throughout so many cultures and in history with, even if it's a different day, Tuesday the 13th, Thursday the 13th, Friday the 13th, it's always the number 13. Wednesday the number 13. It's always the number 13. We don't say the bad luck day is Friday the 7th, Saturday the 12th, right? Or Monday the 12th. It's always the 13 number.
So it's 13th, and Friday's just
Unless
worse.
you're playing craps, then
Right.
it's,
Yeah, then
Elevens.
then it's 11s and 7s and yeah.
Yeah. Those are good.
Those are good on the first roll, baby. That's right. You don't want to crap out though. You don't want snake eyes, right?
No, you don't want to.
But it's just really weird that things are that way. And here's just another correlation that's really bizarre. That I don't know if it was by design, but me personally, my name is Leonard Edward O'Neill, right? So my initials actually are Leo, Leo, but my name is also spelled Leonard. That means Lionheart. Okay, that means Lionheart, right? So my name is a title. It means Lionheart, Guardian, Champion of the People. Okay,
That's
Very
amazing.
that's what my name is. Okay, now here, wait, it gets crazier. It gets crazier.
Informed Norman.
So it gets crazier. So when I was baptized, I chose the name Gabriel to be baptized by. But the nun decided that I needed to be baptized for Saint Leo.
Oh, well, see, there you go.
Okay, so I have two Christian names. My actual name, my Christian name is Leonard Edward Leo Gabriel O'Neill. Okay, and check this out. And but here it gets even crazier. On the 12-month calendar that we have these days, I am a Virgo, but on the 13-month calendar, I am a Leo.
Wow. See, I think I'm a Sagittarius no matter where I live.
Me too.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? See, there's that number. There's that whole correlation weird thing again, right?
There is. There really is.
Yeah.
13, yeah, it's talking to us.
Yep.
If anything,
Yeah.
I would say, if we can't say anything else, that number talks to us. And maybe, we'll understand it better. I mean, some of the things that we've talked
I
about
feel like
tonight, I feel like have
yeah.
brought a lot of light to what I knew.
13 for me
so
is about finding that root, the root. Basically, one is kind of that whole bringing stability and pragmatism, and 3 is that whole inspirational, moving type of
it's the game changer.
creative.
It's the game
You know
changer,
what I mean?
right?
Being
If you
able
got
to create
13
the way
people
to,
in council
um,
voting, you've always got one that's
make
going to
your
swing the vote
root
one way or another.
stable.
I mean, it's a powerful number.
It is. It really is. No matter which way you put it, really. 3s and 1s are powerful numbers.
Yes.
Well, it is interesting how many times that number comes up. I know it back in from studying history, back in the witch hunt days of Salem and all that. To be in a cauldron, you had to have a minimum of 13 members. How that number continually.
Cauldron.
He meant coven.
The show was brought to you by CelticCauldron.com.
Yes,
It
thank
really
you.
was.
Shameless
Beautiful,
plug,
this is
folks, but
beautiful, and
it's
anyway.
awesome. They've got so many products. Sorry, I didn't mean
But
it.
no, yes,
That was
you're
a perfect
right.
segue.
That's the whole
It was,
thing.
thank you.
I feel like
In my head, at least.
for some reason, I've always had this like personal inner. You can't just have that dozen, right? Because
Yeah, the baker's dozen. That's good luck, right?
Baker's dozen is 13.
Get 13 to get that one extra person that's willing to come into your dozen says that you have something valid.
The majority makes the majority.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Well, and it does.
And
That odd person makes the majority. I agree, 100%.
Right. Like
Something
that.
cool
You know
about
what I
the
mean?
odd numbers.
Yeah.
13 comes up so often in so many different things
5 is my number. Not just because
involved in numerology, and you may question how does 13 fit in? Okay, now 13 in metric turns out to be 8 in imperial, and 8 is the infinity symbol.
Yep.
Now 13 reduces as 4. 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 in numerology is the number of your soul, which is half of the infinity symbol of 8. Man and woman, 2 souls. Numerology. So we can see how way back in ancient times they looked at the number 13 and they didn't see it as a bad number. They saw it as an evolving symbol number.
right.
Yeah.
It's weird, right?
Now cycles coming up. That's pretty cool how the cycles. I love that. So, like I said, I follow patterns and what keeps coming up.
Well, and here's another thing too. We just ended Baktun 12, and we're moving into Baktun 13, according to the Mayans.
We'll see. Yeah.
The 13th age,
Lucky number 13.
right?
Yeah, they can change the calendars, but you can't escape the cycles. It's still the
That's right.
And
That's nature.
the thing I feel like that came with the whole negative way of viewing Friday the 13th really came with that whole Western view, right? With those silly superstitions. And I call them that, even though some truly like wholeheartedly believe that. So I'm sorry, I'm calling your wholehearted belief silly. But I call them that because for many, and I include myself in this, right? Because I know I am breaking out of certain brainwashed thinking. We've all just kind of been indoctrinated into these certain holidays. This one's supposed to be this one's supposed to be that, right? Halloween, we can make this be that. You know what I mean? Like they've twisted real scenarios, things that have happened in the world, things that maybe we could put within the cycle, and said, this is what this is supposed to be. And so instead of actually looking at true cycles and real actual symbolism, we've kind of gotten to this point in the Western world, and I'm not even talking about everybody, obviously, but as a majority, what they've tried to do, what they've done, what we're all kind of breaking out of right now, is that whole modality of marketing. A lot of us work in marketing, which really makes it hard for me. I'm trying to market my stuff, and it makes it hard for me because sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I feel like, am I manipulating someone right now? But here's the thing. Really, the thing that comes down to numerology, religion, no matter where you're sitting in this world right now, is really figuring out who you are and where do these things resonate with you. Where are these symbols or cycles or modalities, rituals? Where do they fit in with me and the life I'm living today? And where is it that maybe that was something else? I don't need to worry about that right now. I'm sorry. I totally kind of got off track here.
No, not really. Not really. You think you
I'm
do.
almost telling people to ignore us in a way.
You're taking
because I'm
that
saying,
Disney moment. Remember the Disney moment?
Yeah,
Right.
I know. Well, because
like,
here's the
Jiminy
thing.
Cricket to teach
You
you a lesson.
want to listen to all of it. You do. You want to take it in. You want to kind of marinate it a little bit, see where it fits in with you. But I feel like too many of us really are focused on this, where we're going, or what I'll be, or what I've been, as opposed to remembering this information that we get, whether it's a past life information, whether we can focus and actually learn the numerology and astrology and those things, or really what life is supposed to be, no matter where we're sitting in this life. It's understanding who, what, when, where, and why we are, right? I was born the human being I am today for a reason. Even if sometimes I'm going, why the fuck am I a girl? I talk like a guy. I act like a guy. I feel like I should just be this, right? But I am me. I am this being today, born this way, with these thoughts, with these rituals, in this family, with these certain things happening in my life for a purpose. To bring me, the human, to where I need to be to understand the spirit, right? Because to truly be a master, Jesus, Buddha, whoever, whatever way we want to look at it, to truly be a master is to truly understand ourselves. To know that whether or not someone else sees me as in alignment, I know that I'm in alignment with my body, soul, and mind. You know what I mean? I know that I'm working with 13 the proper way in my lifetime, this lifetime. I'm not allowing someone else's superstition to get in the way, but I understand their superstition, and I take that in awareness
And
when
since
I'm
we're
going
online,
through my life.
Since we're online, I have to do this just because we're getting short on time and we're gonna have to close this out.
I'm
but
sorry.
I'd like to hear a word from each of you
and I know,
before we
yes.
get done. But
and how we can find you.
I wanted to read the
awesome.
angel number. You know the angel numbers you can Google. So the angel number 13 is made up of numbers 1 and 3, which means that it derives its meaning from combining the vibrational essence of each of these numbers. The number 1 is of individuality, achievement, and optimism. It is the number of leadership and taking the initiative. While the number 1 is about optimism and initiative, the number 3 is about our spirituality and ability to create.
Yes.
So the power to manifest from 1 to 3, right? 1 to 3. Take it 1 to 3. Take like we're doing right now. We're collaborating. We're talking about Friday the 13th.
We're taking our
I've had a
individual
great time.
perspectives. Oh my
I've
God,
learned
yeah.
a lot. I feel like we can keep
We got to
talking.
have you guys both back on.
Yes, we will
because
talk about more.
Obviously,
Maybe
we have
yes.
a lot more to talk
But
about.
I would like you both to have like something in closing about the number 13. And
where we can find you
where
guys,
we can find you, yes. And then
your specialties or whatever it is
and
you
then
want
we'll
to promote.
finish up. But thank you all for being here, and thank you all
we
for
appreciate
viewing
all of you.
and sharing for us, and we appreciate you all.
And hey, take the floor, guys. Let's start with JD.
Yes,
Well, thank you for having us, guys. It's been a pleasure.
yes, pleasure's all
And
ours.
you will be back, I hope.
For anybody looking for my research, you can find it on ancientagenda.com. I have a Facebook group, Ancient Agenda, where we share the research we evaluate, which we call CSI history. So yes, the number 13. It's been a valuable number in our past history that, say for the last 1,000 years, we've been made to disassociate from. The research we've uncovered, this number is quite prominent in the various ancient monuments we don't understand, which links them together and explains a cycle of history we're not quite familiar with.
Good.
Yes.
I agree. And I need to check out your page. I need to check out your group.
Send me your link in the group, if nothing else, so I can put it in here.
Type it in the chat, JD. Put it in there.
And Leo, please.
All right, you guys
Last
know
words.
for the number 13. When I was younger, I think I was superstitious towards that because you're brought up that way with superstitions. My father was very superstitious. Pardon me. And he believed in, if a black cat crossed your path, you had to pull over the car. I was with him when he did that. You could pull over the car and wait 15 minutes or go back the other way. I remember him doing that. He was very superstitious that way, and some people are. And just like you were saying earlier, that we all walk our own path. So if somebody else has a superstition, I don't try to have a problem with that because it's their superstition. You have to kind of live. My soon-to-be ex-wife was very OCD, and she had a lot of OCD issues, and I had to work around those because there were certain things that really would either scare her or anger her if they weren't done a certain way. So some people are like that. You have to deal with their linear mind or their non-linear mind. So when it comes to the number 13, I think, and I agree with what JD said, I think that the number 13, like the repetitive Orion on this planet, and that's why I wrote my book called Orion Rising, and I have the show called Orion Rising, is because we were trying to tell ourselves something. We're trying to leave something there for us to understand and to see, to find out, to look at, and we leave hints all over this planet, all over our literature, all over our history, all over our Talmuds that tell us certain numbers and certain groups of things and certain rituals and certain things that are hidden from us that we should be paying attention to. So when it comes to Friday the 13th, I'm not afraid of it. I embrace it. The number 13 is just another day for me, but I recognize it, like you said. You recognize the number 13 and what it means, and that's why when we were brought up, hey, why don't we do Friday the 13th? Because I knew that this was what we were going to get out of this, because JD and I have had many conversations about the number 13 and the correlations and the all over the place. So I think it was great. I'm glad you guys had me on here, and yeah, anytime you guys want me to come back, just let me know. So for me, guys, you can find me Orion Rising. Like I said, you heard me say, is my show. You can find that on Facebook on Orion Rising, the page. You can also see my YouTube channel, which is of the same name, Orion Rising. I do have a holistic new age website called Kelto's Cauldron. So go to keltoscauldron.com, and we have over 6,000 items on that website. That is completely insane, the amount of stuff. And there's good prices on there. There's a lot of things that I tell people all the time. I want to buy it for myself, because when I was selling it, when I was selling it not online on that website, when I was just selling them personally, like on Amazon, I charged more money for it and sold a whole bunch of them. So when you look at the prices, compare. I tell you, go and compare the prices, because you're not going to find it the stuff that I sell there with the quality that I sell and as cheap as I sell it. It's really good stuff. If you're into, it doesn't matter what you're into. There's DVDs, there's books, there's CDs, there's everything that you could, literally you could say, I'm Hindu today. And you could go there and buy everything you need to be Hindu. And even to learn how to.
Chakra pyramid. Pretty cool.
Right?
Chakra pyramid.
Yeah. There's books on chakra. There's Reiki books. There's
everything. I mean, really. If you're
Native American.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, everything you want to find, really, that I could see in there. There's so many products in there and so many things in there. Check it out. KeltosCauldron.com with a K.
With a K. Kelto with a K. KELTOS. Right, Keltos, Cauldron, CAULDRON, KeltosCauldron.com.
That's right.
And he's got so many things, guys.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Yes.
Catch us next time. I don't know when we'll be available next.
I
don't
think
think I
we're
have it.
coming soon.
Next week, we've got some shows.
Next week.
But thank you both for being here.
Oh my gosh. And
Much
yes, we
love
will
to both of
definitely
you,
be
and we'll talk to you
contacting
soon.
again.
Much love to all of you in the viewing this right now, and have a great weekend.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Mwah, mwah,
Peace
mwah.
out, y'all.
Until next time.